Calvin and Hobbes is the best comic of all time, and its creator, Bill Watterson, should be the richest artist ever, but he's not. He turned down Taylor Swift level money, and he did it on purpose. While fellow comic artist Charles Schulz was topping this Forbes list for the richest entertainers, making as much as Madonna and Michael Jackson, Bill Watterson was quietly creating his Calvin and Hobbes comics. The difference between these two? Merchandising.
Merchandising! Where the real money from the movie is made.
Haven't you ever wondered why there's no Hobbes stuffed animal? No spaceman spiff spaceship? No toboggans or wagons? Nothing. Why did Watterson deny his superfans all the cool merch? Why did he refuse to merchandise so much as a coffee mug? And exactly how much money did it cost him? In order to understand this, we first need to understand just how popular Calvin and Hobbes was. This is the first strip. Technically, this is the first strip. But in this one, his name is Marvin, and he's not even the main character yet. By 1987, Calvin and Hobbes was in 300 newspapers, making it the fastest growing strip of the decade. In one poll, Calvin and Hobbes was 4 times more popular than the next closest competitor. And it was at this point that they started getting calls. Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, Jim Henson, they all wanted to make movies. But Watterson wanted nothing to do with any of them. He fought against greeting cards, mugs, t-shirts. He didn't want his characters to be anywhere except for comics and books. There was just one problem. He didn't actually own the rights to any of his characters. This was actually fairly common at that time. Young, unknown artists signed with these syndicates to promote their work, and the syndicate basically took everything. Watterson was no different. The syndicate owned Calvin and Hobbes. They could create Hobbes stuffed animals and t-shirts and anything else they wanted. Worse than that, even if Watterson quit, he could not take Calvin and Hobbes with him. The syndicate owned so much that they could continue Calvin and Hobbes without him by simply hiring another artist. So Watterson took a risk. 5 years into the strip, he was desperate to have ownership of his characters back. So he threatened to quit and walk away from everything, unless the syndicate returned all his rights back to him and stopped trying to merchandise.
Just artists being artists.
So the syndicate had to weigh cashing in versus continuing the strip.
I am never going to financially recover from this.
Luckily for everyone, they chose Watterson, deciding he was essential to the strip. And he continued working, creating what he calls the best years of Calvin and Hobbes. So the question remains, exactly how much money did Watterson leave on the table? Well, while Bill Watterson was working very hard to prevent merchandising, Peanuts and Garfield were cashing in.
Working in a supermarket.
Same as the Snoopy snow cone machine.
Oh boy, lasagna.
In the all-new Peanut Special.
You're the greatest!
Baby, I'm stuck like glue.
Garfield sold so many of these suction cup dolls that Jim Davis had them pulled from shelves for 5 years for fear of overexposure. And it wasn't just their own products. There were commercials too.
Why, you should get me.
The American Express card.
I'm sure the 61 Falcon will rank high in favor with the buying public.
And there's no reason to think Calvin and Hobbes couldn't have done the same. They were in a similar number of newspapers, but Jim Davis and Charles Schulz were insanely rich, making about $35 million a year buying everything from hockey rinks to warehouses, while Bill Watterson continued to write his comic in small-town Ohio. By 1999, Peanuts characters were on over 20,000 new products every year, making about $1 billion a year. Garfield similarly sold nearly $1 billion in merchandise every year, but Watterson just didn't care about the money. I have no aversion to obscene wealth, but that's not my motivation either. What mattered to him was preserving the world in which his characters lived. Merchandising would have ruined the magic. He also didn't want to be running an empire. He just wanted to be an artist. And the price for being an artist and not a businessman, as it turns out, is over $1 billion. Remember that $35 million a year that other artists were making? Yeah, Bill Watterson missed out on that for the last 34 years, which equates to nearly $1.2 billion, give or take a few million. By 1995, with his strip in over 2,000 papers, Watterson felt like he'd said all he had to say, so he quit. He never licensed, never sold out, never ran his characters into the ground. It seemed a gesture of respect and gratitude toward my characters to leave them at top form. I like to think that, now that I'm not recording everything they do, Calvin and Hobbes are out there having an even better time. Watterson saved his characters and their integrity not only for us, but for future generations, so that our kids can discover Calvin and Hobbes on dusty bookshelves and have the magical experience we all did when we first discovered that mischievous 6-year-old and his tiger going on another adventure. So thanks, Mr. Watterson. In the age of advertising, you chose magic over money.